What is up, my friends? It is the beginning of the week. Good morning. I'm going to do something a little bit different today. I will still do my usual, smart money view where we look at charts and we look at smart money and everything. We're going to do that tomorrow, most likely. But today we're going to look at some news. I usually don't do this, but I think it could be helpful in showing you how bullish and bearish news, even though I don't believe news moves the markets, it can help you to determine, what tokens are possibly going to move next. So we're going to jump into that. Before we get started, of course, nothing I say is financial advice. If you would hit the like, subscribe, share with your friends. Maybe this is something that they would enjoy seeing as well. And we'll definitely get into the more technical side of things tomorrow when we do our usual smart money view. So let's just jump into it. I mean, I am going to talk a little bit about the market and how it affects the charts. Like this one specifically, gold hits another all-time high of 3630. That is huge, especially for crypto, because once this thing finds a top, I don't know if many of you knew this, but once this finds a top and starts moving back down, that's when crypto really starts moving hard. And you can see it in the charts if you go back and look at it. There's a complete inverse between it and Bitcoin. Although there are times when Bitcoin slowly creeps up along with gold. But anyway, this is good news for us. And this is something that I talked about actually yesterday and today. WLFI, I think it's World Liberty Fi is the name of it. There was a lot of FUD surrounding Justin Sun and his frozen tokens and him speaking out against the Trump family, that sort of thing. Just understand when you see things like this, I want to show you how this can be used to FUD your position and make you sell, make you emotional. That's what news is for, right? Emotional thinking. So there was a time in the 80s when the news was mostly positive. If you turned on the TV, it was mostly positive. But now everything, when you turn on the news at night, everything's about, this person got shot, this person got murdered. It all brings you down. And a lot of media is that way as well when you go on X. So I would just say try to find things that are more uplifting. You don't need somebody else bringing you down. There's plenty of stuff going on in your life that might be doing that on its own. But the point here is that 3 days ago, if you look at this chart, it says here that I think this is on Cointelegraph is where I found this. Justin Sun urges Trump-linked WLFI to unlock unreasonably, they use that as a quote, frozen tokens. So that's the emotional word there. And this happened right at the bottom, just as this thing was putting in a higher low when you actually should be buying. This was a very good area to buy when it was breaking out of this downtrend. So, don't let things like this shake you out. Sometimes when you see stuff like this, it should make you want to buy. Always, if you feel a certain thing and we're in a bull market, if you feel like bearish feelings when things are coming down and you start seeing news like this, usually that's a good sign that the bottom's close to being in. And I just mentioned here that, this had nothing to do with Sun or Trump. It had everything to do with causing retail fear. And for me, currently, the macro chart looks like an inverted head and shoulders. So there is a possibility of it even moving higher than it already has. And here, here it is right here. So it's Cointelegraph. This was the thing where I took a snip of this and posted it on there. And then this kind of dives into it a little bit more. This is Cointelegraph talking about it more deeply, saying Justin Sun, and that's the Tron founder, by the way, is urging World Liberty Financial to unfreeze its token allocation. Bitmine chair Tom Lee reaffirmed his stance that ETH will reach 60,000 in the long term, and other news. So here's another thing. You kind of got all in one post. You got some FUD and you got some some hype, is what I would call it. I don't really see ETH going to 60,000 this cycle. Now, sure, the news is going to put out things like this from the talking heads out there that in the long term, ETH could hit 60,000, and it probably will. But what's the long term to them? They're not really saying what it is, right? It could be, 4 or 5 years from now. So what's my target for ETH this cycle? Well, I would say the minimum is about 8,000, and it could reach, 20,000, who knows? But, 8 to 12,000 is the conservative number for me. We'll just have to see how it plays out. And I'm showing you all of the, kind of the FUD news first, and then we'll get into more of the positive news. So here we got Watch Your Guru. This is a X account notorious for posting FUD type things to get people emotional. It could be an industry plant. We don't know. So it's saying just in Ethereum Foundation announces intent to sell 10,000 ETH worth 43 million. I mean, 10,000 ETH, 10,000 Bitcoin, it's really not that much. Yeah, 43 million sounds like a lot of money, but there's a lot of inflows, outflows every day for ETH and Bitcoin. They're highly liquid, and it's really just not that much, even if it is true. And here we got another one, Asia morning briefing, BTC Treasury demand is weakening. Crypto quant cautions. So there's your emotional word right there, cautions. Despite record Bitcoin Treasury holdings, a sharp drop in average purchase size shows weakening. And I mean, this just doesn't matter, right? In the long term, they even used a picture of Sailor here, which is another industry plant, in my opinion. And when I say industry plant, I mean, it's somebody that, the powers that be have set up as a figurehead, somebody that people look up to in order to use them for, news articles such as this, because they need a celebrity, right? They need somebody, just like in music, they need somebody that people are going to latch on to, like, Taylor Swift or something like that. And this is kind of a future thing to think about. Digital identity is an infrastructure crisis. It's saying here on Crypto News that no one talks about, saying identity must do more. So these articles are put out there to kind of show what the future is going to look like. Nobody's going to be, a private entity anymore, or a private individual. They'll be able to look you up. There's just so many ways that they're going to be able to track your identity through crypto, or, a lot of people say that blockchain is decentralized and that it helps to create privacy. I don't believe that. I think it takes privacy away. So that's what I see in the future. May not be something right away, but they're putting the idea out there that there needs to be more regulation, or there needs to be, with crypto specifically, that's just one idea, or they need, better digital identity. It's just kind of, it's preparing your mind for that, for the future, so that it's not such a surprise. Sassel.eth here talks about, what is this one? Bitmine and SharpLink Gaming. SharpLink probably rings a bell more for some of you. It does for me. Bitmine, I don't know very well, but I guess that's people that mine Bitcoin, possibly. Bitmine machines, maybe. So, SharpLink, SBET was in the news a lot for doing pretty well, as far as the chart went. And it's saying they now own over 500,000 ETH, with the Ether machine not far behind. So if we look at, I actually haven't looked at this in a while. It's strategic ETH Reserve. So if we look at the strategic ETH Reserve, just to see who the leaders are, who's holding the most. You got Bitmine, SharpLink, Ether machine, Ethereum Foundation, of course. I think it's interesting that Pulse Chain is there. So, a lot of people don't like Richard Hart, and that's fine. I made a post recently that it doesn't matter. You don't have to like somebody to make money off of their token. So it's interesting that Pulse Chain is right there at number 5. People are putting ETH onto their balance sheet, just like they're putting Bitcoin on the balance sheet for their companies. And it's smart to do so in a bull market. So, they're going to be the ones that make a lot of money. So you got Coinbase there, plus, Pulse Chain's ahead of Coinbase. What else? Mantle, Golem, Gnosis, LDO, Frax, Arbitrum, Optimism. I mean, a lot of the high cap tokens that are going to be talked about here in about a month from now, that they went up, or maybe they're going up right now. Maybe they're going to be some of these companies right here, or these projects. And then people will be able to point back and say, oh yeah, look, they bought a lot of ETH, and that's the reason why, they're doing so well. So just remember this in the future. That could be one of the reasons that they're getting a lot of positive feedback, or positive press. Metaplanet buys 15 million in Bitcoin. Total holdings now at 20,000 BTC. I don't know what Metaplanet is. It was just something I saw come across that made a lot of sense, as far as something that wanted to. They kind of have to balance the negative with the positive, and this is something that's going to get people pumped up, get people excited. And here's another one. Galaxy Jump Multicoin seek 1 billion for buying Solana. So Solana is probably one of the ones that's going to be first to move pretty soon here. And I thought this was interesting. We've always talked about, or at least I have in my circles, about how in the future things are going to be tokenized on the stock market. So it's all going to be cryptos, or for the most part. And you're looking at the infrastructure that's being set up for that. So tech stocks plus crypto in the same derivatives contract, and they're doing this little ticker. They're wanting you to think, oh, this is just like stocks, right? Something familiar for you. So it gets more people involved in crypto. I thought this was good for Ondo. Ondo could be something that is one of these first high caps to start moving pretty soon here once, Bitcoin and everything moves up by October. So Ondo Global Markets is now live, providing one of the largest ever selections of tokenized US stocks and ETFs on chain. So, here's another thing. It's talking about, it's getting you used to thinking about stocks and cryptos together. So it's kind of, adding a layer of reliability there in your mind. Trump family adds 1.3 billion of crypto wealth in span of weeks. They want you to start thinking of the big, the big families, the people that are in the news that are actually making money off crypto. They need retail to start coming in, right? So this kind of tells me that we're not too far from the end. Those of you that know me, that have watched me for a while, know that I talk about unemployment and that combined with rates coming down, rate cuts. When those two things converge, unemployment skyrocketing while rates are coming down, then that's actually bearish. The top of the market would be in soon if we saw something like that. The rate cuts just haven't really started yet for the US. They're just getting ready to, maybe the end of this month. And once that happens, then we'll start watching the unemployment numbers, and I'll report on that. Let's see, crypto news today, September 8th, Bitcoin holds 111K, while Dogecoin ETF hype lifts meme coins, best crypto to buy. So, they're kind of putting Doge out there, and I think it's a good one to talk about. Doge is one of the safer options, not that anything's safe in crypto or investing in general. There's always risk involved with those, but it's just putting Dogecoin out there. Talking about it having an ETF. This is another one of those bullish narratives that once the top of the market comes in, people are going to point back to it and say, yeah, that's why it pumped. So that's why news articles like this exist. And Bitcoin is holding around 111K, 112K. If it can do that, then I think we're ready to move up right away. If not, then we'll probably move right at the beginning of October somewhere. And then we got breaking news here from crypto.com. Of course, this is being posted by the same company that owns CRO, the token. So you have to kind of take that with a grain of salt. But it's saying Trump Media Group CRO strategy has announced 6.5 or 6.4 billion in funds to build America's chrono treasury. I mean, we've seen this before, right? Like strategic Bitcoin reserve, that token went up really hard and then it came down. Crow is a little bit more well known because it was here last cycle, I believe, and they have a lot of commercials on TV and that sort of thing, so they're more well known. But still, this is one of those bullish news narratives that can get retail more involved. And that kind of wraps up the news portion of what I was going to talk about. I do just want to here at the end do a quick shout out to Moni. Moni does this weekly, actually they even do daily discovers where they talk about either projects that have just launched or projects that haven't launched yet that you can get in on when they launch, because sometimes there is a pump right away. And they do this report for you if you're a subscriber. So you got things like, what is this one here? Vigil Labs. I'll just give you a couple of them so you're aware of them. Let me bring up the top three here. Elastics. Okay. Let me see if they have a thing. Sometimes they have things. Yeah, here it is right here. So they've got a probability sheet. These are stealth mode projects. This one launched. The rest of them haven't yet. So we got things like Tairon, BETLY trade. So you've got these prediction markets starting to show up, right? This one's on Polygon. So, this could be something to jump in early on. I'm trying to see if there's anything else here that's interesting. Yeah, not really. Yeah, so let's just look at a couple of these. And I'm going to go through these quickly. So this one's followed by Theo. You know, Theo's a really good account on Twitter. You've seen me talk about him before. If you want to find him, it's 0x Detweiler. There he is, right there. 0x Detweiler. So let's see. Yeah, so this doesn't have a whole lot of, there's no posts or anything. That tends to happen, right, when they're first launched. So you may want to check back on some information on this one. But it's called Vigil Labs. Pigskin Fantasy Football. And of course, that's a big one right now. Football just started. They've got a lot of news here. Honkayo, that's one of the devs at, at Moni. Of course, there's Thread Guy. A lot of you know that person. This one does have a website, looks like. Yeah, so fantasy football reimagined on Solana. Here's Elastic's AI agents for prediction markets. So this company or this project is combining AI agents with prediction, and it's a smart thing to do. They're just going by what the narrative is currently. So you can see that account there. Here's Tairon, the Oracle layer for AI. So there's been no pre-sale yet. 50% of supply is locked on Team Finance. It powers the MCP supergraph, building the first chain agnostic communication layer for on-chain data and AI. So, maybe this is one you want to look into based on that. And then we've got BETLY Trade, social betting made simple. It says the app's now live. It's basically Polymarket combined with Tinder. That's interesting. Okay, and just a quick preview here of what we may talk about tomorrow. I want to show you just a snapshot here of the last 24 hours, which tokens have the most volume coming in, or net flows. So net flows means that there's more smart money buys than there are sells, so more inflows than outflows. And these are some of the tokens I've been talking about over the last few days. WLFI, Pingu, here's Beam, ENA, I don't know what Brew is, SPX, Eagle's been showing up a lot. Yeah, so that's most of the one. Oh, there's BETLY right there, actually. That's interesting. We just talked about that one. So this is how you can combine Moni and Nansen to find really good trades. But anyway, hopefully that was informative. This is the first time I'm going through the whole news thing. We'll try to do this more and more. And, maybe it will help you out with your decision making. But again, I'm not trying to provide financial advice here. I'm just kind of showing you the things that I'm looking at each day. Okay. Well, if y'all enjoyed that, hit the like, hit subscribe, share it with your friends, and we'll do another one tomorrow, hopefully. Take care.